Hi, everyone. Good morning. I am Tracy Diamond, the Adult Services Coordinator at the Enoch Pratt Free Library, and we are so excited to be here with Creative Mornings Baltimore and Lola Pierson presenting on stress at the Hamilton branch. So we are in historic Hamilton, just off of Hartford Road. You might be able to hear some of the cars behind us. It's a bustling area. So some Baltimore history. The original building opened in 1920, but we have been at this location since 1959, when it opened after the World War II housing boom. Before we jump in, I have a couple things to let you know about what's happening at the Pratt Library. We have sidewalk service at 14 locations, including the Hamilton branch, where we are today. And at the Hamilton branch, you pick up in the beautiful courtyard, and it's supported and maintained by the Friends of the Hamilton Branch Library. So thank you to them for all of their hard work supporting the branch. On November 4th, we welcome you back in for computer classes by appointment only. And so that's at 3 branches, the Spring Avenue branch and the Southeast Anchor Library. We also have a 2020 voting guide on our website, so it has the most up-to-date information before the general election on November 3rd. And we also just want to give a big thank you to the Creative Mornings Baltimore team, Kira, Mario, the tech support, because man, doing an event in a pandemic virtually, but we're all together, it's not easy. So, and also thank you to all the generous partners. We love hosting the event and supporting the creative community. So we just can't wait to do this all together when it's safe to gather in person. So now I'm going to pass it over to Kira.
Good Baltimore morning, everyone. Thank you so much, Tracy. My name is Kira Wisniewski, and I have the distinct pleasure and honor of being your host and co-organizer of Creative Mornings Baltimore. We're so excited to be here at the Enoch Pratt Hamilton Branch Library this morning in our beloved Baltimore City. And I'm so glad that you all could be with us virtually. Sorry that we're just a couple minutes late. We had some tech issues. It started to rain, but here we are. But before we get started, I want to say out loud, Black Lives Matter. I also want to acknowledge that we're all going through some trauma at this point, and we're in a pandemic, and just really, really glad that you are here with us, even more grateful just considering everything that is happening. So whether you're joining us on Facebook or YouTube or Periscope via Twitter, I encourage you to hit that share button right now, wherever you are, whatever platform. I'll give you a minute. So Creative Mornings is one of over 200 chapters around the world, and what unites us is that we all believe that everyone is creative and everyone is invited. We're one of over dozens of Creative Mornings events happening this morning. So one more time, go ahead and hit that share button on your platform. And please tag us wherever you're watching. We'd love to see what it looks like on your end. You can tag us at Baltimore_CM. And we know that this cannot replace the IRL event. We also hear you, we want to hear what you think of today's event. So we'll be sending out a brief survey. We'll have a link for that at the end. We love actionable feedback and just really value what you have to say. You are part of this community. We have Anita and Sabina and Amanda all in the chat today. Arlene too, encouraging dialogue there. Hey y'all. So thank you so much for joining us today. I'm wearing my Amanda Mustard shirt today. Hey. Thanks, Amanda. And each month, we like to ask someone special to read our manifesto. Today, we have the honor to welcome Alana Nicole. When co-organizer Mario and I first came into leadership of Creative Mornings Baltimore, Alana was one of the first to reach out to us and really wanted to connect us with Impact Hub, which we're so grateful for. In the past 2 years alone, Alana has marketed and produced a countless number of events, projects, and campaigns for nonprofits and small businesses in the areas of arts, education, and youth focus. And on top of that, you've probably seen her writing in nearly every local publication. And if you know her, you already know that she is a woman to have in your corner. So my Scorpio sister recently celebrated her birthday, and on the cake, it said Baltimore's Godmother. Please welcome Alana Nicole to read the Creative Mornings Manifesto.
Hi, everybody. My name is Alana Nicole. Thank you so much, Kira, for that amazing introduction. I'm here to read the manifesto. I'll jump right into it. Everyone is creative. A creative life requires bravery and action, honesty and hard work. We are here to support you, celebrate with you, and encourage you to make the things you love. We believe in the power of community. We believe in giving a damn. We believe in face-to-face connections, in learning from others, in virtual hugs. We bring together people who are driven by passion and purpose, confident that they will inspire one another and inspire change in neighborhoods and cities around the world. Everyone is welcome. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Doctor. That believe in our community, people and companies that give a damn. Typically, I'd ask our local volunteers to stand up, but I do want to give a special shout out to Mario, Sabina, Arlene, Anita, Winston, Henley, Sean, and Veronica. This would not happen without you, like for real, for real. This is also where we'd have slides of our beloved partners, but we're going analog, and luckily, from one of our sustaining partners at Alpha Graphics, we have some signs for you. I've said it many times, but on a very personal level, one of the greatest things about working with Creative Mornings is an opportunity to work with some of our local businesses, including Alpha Graphics, HASA, Impact Hub, Local Color Flowers, Maryland Art Place, Pixelated, and White Tea Company. So we're dropping in the chat a link that lists all of our wonderful sustaining partners, as well as the folk we've been fortunate to work with since the reboot of our chapter last year. If you can, we encourage you to support them more than ever. If you can't monetarily support them, please consider following them on social media, or even just like a like or a reshare. I recently saw a post that if you save a post on Instagram, that's really the best thing you can do. So do that for all of our sponsors. And global. We are a volunteer run, and we do have amazingly generous in-kind partners, and we've invested, frankly, personal money into equipment to make this event virtual. And we have a handful of hard costs each month, and would love, love, love your financial support if you're able to. Thanks to our fiscal sponsor, MAP, making a donation to us is now easier than ever. To give you an idea of where some of your donations would go, if 7 of you donated $10 each, you'd be offsetting our ASL each month. If 5 of you give $5 each, you'll be able to cover our streaming subscriptions. And if 7 of you just give $2, you'll cover our Zoom account. This year, our chapter has been addressing our themes slightly out of order. Sorry, I lost my spot. So when we reached out to Lola, she had the option of 3 themes, actually. Insecure, transit, or stress. So today, Lola will be exploring the theme of stress, something I think is a little relatable right now. It was chosen by the Warsaw chapter and illustrated by Shanae Benjamin. And so now for Lola B. Pierson is a highly collaborative artist born and raised in Baltimore City. She's a playwright, writer, and director. Her work challenges theatrical form, incorporating elements of social media, performance art, and visual art, switcheroos, and boredom. Other words she used to describe her work in her bios include presence, explorer, dynamic, and representation. A graduate of the Baltimore School for the Arts, Bard College, and Towson University, she's passionate about the intersections of language, time, presence, and philosophy. She writes new work and messes with classics that deserve it. She is the co-founding artistic director of the Acme Corporation. Creative Mornings Baltimore, please help me welcome Lola B. Pierson to the virtual stage.
Thanks. So thank you to Creative Mornings for having me and to Enoch Pratt for hosting us. As Kira said, I'm Lola B. Pierson. I am a writer, director, all-around theater maker, and I run the Acme Corporation, which is a small theater company. I am also a total stress case. So the Creative Mornings people pitched the themes to me, and I picked the one that appealed to me the most, which was stress. And then they suggested that I tell a story on that theme that was relatable and personal. And I thought, now what's happened to me lately that's stressful that people might be able to relate to? And then I remembered the unending escalating hellscape that we're all living through. And I thought, well, maybe there's something there. Stress is an indication that something needs to change. It's not innately bad. There are a lot of studies that show if you can view it as a beneficial thing, it can actually be beneficial and healthy to you. So like you go running, your body is under stress, and then you sweat. Your body gets overheated, you start to sweat, it cools you down. In that case, your body is able to relieve the stress immediately because of that mechanism. Then we can also look at things like social movements, right? Like racial inequality is not new, and Black and brown people have been carrying that stress for a very long time. Social media has made it harder for white people to ignore it or act like it doesn't exist. And a mechanism of empathy is when we see suffering, it causes stress in us and we want to change it. So social media sort of took away our plausible deniability. And now we're seeing, I hope, this sort of radical shift in the way mainstream culture views race and racism. So stress can be good, right? But what about when we can't make the change that we need to make the stress stop? Like one example would be if you were living through an ongoing global pandemic, just for example. We can't eliminate our current circumstances, and there's actually very little we can do to change them. And pretending that it's not stressful only makes it worse. I think that the first step to navigating stress is being present with it and not rushing to make the change, but realizing that something needs to change, which in order to do, we have to be present with it, we have to sit with it. So I'm just going to talk about my experience of the pandemic as a total stress case. And maybe there's something in there that will connect with you. Directly before the pandemic, I wrote and directed an opera with music by the band Horse Lords. And it was one of the biggest projects of my whole life. I wrote it, I directed it, I did the set design, I did the video design, I produced it. We were opening the theater, the Voxel, where we were doing it at the same time. It was the first show, so we were also like building railings and like renting chairs. And it was extremely stressful. We closed on March 1st, which was about 2 weeks before the pandemic hit. So we closed the show, and then almost immediately the world just shut down. And my body sort of shut down with it. So generally after you do a show, you need to recover because you've just been running on adrenaline to like get everything done that needs to get done. And adrenaline depletes, amongst other things, vitamin C. So like when you're done a big project, or if you've been traveling, or if you've been on tour, you will often get sick afterwards, right? Because the adrenaline keeps you going through it. And then afterwards you get sick. These mechanisms that like keep us going are extremely powerful, but they come with a cost. Like adrenaline rushes are meant to help us like run very fast from a predator for 10 minutes. They're not meant to carry us through a 2-month rehearsal process. They're definitely not meant to carry us through a 2-year quarantine. So I won't go too far into what those first 3 months were like for me, but basically I was very, very sick, and I spent most of every day in bed because the stress had kind of broken me emotionally, physically, spiritually. And at the same time, the entire world is flipping out, right? And everything is going online. Like everyone is putting everything on the internet immediately. And I'm stuck in bed and the entire world is changing around me very quickly and very dramatically. And all of a sudden, everything is on a screen. Like friendship is on a screen, and work is on a screen, and art is on a screen. And I don't love screens. I don't even have a smartphone. So there's a reason I practice theater. I love being in a room with people and breathing the same air. And that is literally the one thing we are not allowed to do right now, is breathe the same air. So this was a really big shift for me. And it stressed me out. I was recovering from this huge project. And all of a sudden I was supposed to learn this entirely new way of being. And it all felt, and continues to feel, extremely isolating. I love being in a big rehearsal room with a ton of people and everyone's ideas. And then it was just me and my ideas. So often the way that I'm inspired to make work is I find something that's stressing me out, I figure out why, and I try to make a change to address that. Like I'm a problem solver at heart. So the thing that was stressing me out was that everything was screen-based. And I really fundamentally believe that theater is a place for dynamic presence. And what we're able to create in the room is ephemeral, but it's very, very real. And I've spent my whole life trying to create that feeling, that sort of magical presence. And I just wasn't, I didn't want to move things onto Zoom. And I'm not saying this to denigrate the amazing work that artists and teachers and CreativeMornings and the entire world has done to be very adaptable and move things onto the internet. I think that's a really good example of good stress, is like people adapting and keeping going. But it just wasn't going to work for me. And it was a source of like real suffering for me, because I don't love screens. So I came up with this idea that what if I could create something that was based in the physical world that got sent to the audience. And not only would it not be on a screen, but it would be like an alternative to a screen. So not only would you not watch it, but like you would turn your phone off, you would put your computer away, just like you were at a real play. I'm going to talk about sort of the process of making that piece. Before I go into that, I want to give a little disclaimer, which is when I'm talking about the piece, I talk a lot about like how alone I felt, and it was really isolating, but we did have a really amazing team on this piece, and the actors were like operating as their own sound designers. They were like in their closets with pillows taped up, recording themselves, and people volunteered to deliver the boxes. And most of all, the sound designer, Cricket Pierson, just did a tremendous amount of work on the piece and ended up actually sort of operating as like a co-director. So I'm going to be like, and I was all alone, but I wasn't actually all alone, but I was, because I was in my house all alone. Okay, so I came up with this idea that I could make a play in a box. And the idea was you get this box sent to you and everything in it is what you need to have a theatrical experience at home without a screen or having to connect to the internet. You can just pay people money and they will put anything on a box for you and treat you like you are a real person. So I did that, and I got these boxes made. And then inside of the box, there are all these things. So there's an MP3 player, which guides you through the experience of the play. There are these actors acting out a loose story. And then there are these like audio commercials that are like radio commercials for the Institute for Counterfeit Memory. And then there's this robot that like directs you to do things, like it's like turn off the lights in your house or put your cell phone away or whatever. So there's this narrative that's happening over the MP3 player. And then while that's happening, you have all these physical objects that you're playing with and you're sort of recreating at home, sort of an imitation of what a play would be like. So there's like lights, and each play has its own little set, which I made from these leftover slides that I'm constantly trying to jam into plays. And like, finally, I had a reason to use these stupid slides. Light is a really important element in my work. So I found these like teeny tiny LED lights, and you put them into the slides and into the jars, and they backlit the slides. And I thought it looked so cool. And then there are a couple other things in the box. But the cutest thing was these like cute little hand crank music boxes. And at one point the robot is like, and play a song for yourself. And he says it just like that. Okay, and making this project was so stressful. I cannot overstate how stressful it was. I ran into all these crazy logistical obstacles. Like, I'm used to having a lot of help, and people couldn't help, right? Because we can't be near other people. Also, the post office shut down out of nowhere, which at that time was very expected. And a lot of this was reliant on the mail. So I wasn't anticipating that. And then there were these really big artistic obstacles as well. Like, I don't like working alone. I am used to making one really big thing that people all come look at together. And instead I was making like hundreds of little things. Every single slide that I had was different, except I did this bulk order of slides, and like 20% of them were just this one picture of Whitney Houston, which was awesome, but I didn't want to make a play about Whitney Houston. So I had this problem of trying to solve using the same narrative to cover all these different visuals. And there was really no way to do that. And then there was this really big obstacle with like getting the jars to look the way I wanted to, where I realized that the only way I could do it to have the light refract in the right way was to etch every single one of these jars, like hundreds and hundreds of them, by hand, which was extremely time consuming and really stressful. And that was, I sort of like flipped out. And it was a real, like, the call is coming from inside the house moment, because this was this summer. So large portions of California were literally on fire. Almost 200,000 people were dead in the US from coronavirus. There are these massive protests against racial injustice where the cops were just like attacking people in a terrifying way. And I am alone in my basement with my like stupid rubber gloves on, just freaking out that these jars don't look the way I want them to, for a project that not only did no one else care about, but literally at that point, no one knew existed but me. And that was a real breaking point. Like, I broke down a little bit. And so I stopped and I took a step back and I sort of like sat with my stress. And I realized that in addition to being stressed out about the jars not refracting the light in the way I wanted, I was actually freaking out because this thing that my entire life is built around, which is sitting in the dark with people and watching something together on stage, is just gone. And maybe it'll come back in a couple of years, but we really don't know. There's a fracture inside of me between the rational and the irrational that only live performance has ever been able to sort of stitch together. And without that, the fracture is sort of present all the time. And I don't have any other skills. I don't. This is the only thing I've ever done since I was a little kid. And I felt really all alone with no help. And so it was sort of a shattering point for me. And so what I decided to do was to just be honest about that. So what I did is I added this other layer to the piece that was about the play that I would have done if the pandemic hadn't ever happened. And this play in my imagination was like brilliant. It was the best play you've ever seen, which is the whole thing, right? When something isn't burdened by execution and it only exists in our imagination, it's the most magnificent thing. Which I think is part of the grief we're all experiencing this year, is about these things that were in our imagination about what was maybe going to happen, were all so magnificent because they weren't burdened with reality or burdened with execution, and we're all grieving that loss. So I wrote a letter to the audience about the play that they would have seen if I could have made it, and about like how good it would have been. And that's when I really started to love the piece that I was making, and it sort of took its form because I was making not an imitation of a play, but something that was its own thing. And I ended up liking it so much better because it prompted people to sort of imagine what could have happened if the pandemic hadn't. I think two of the most powerful counteragents for stress are connection and presence. And that is actually how our nervous systems calm down from stressful scenarios, is with connection and presence. It's why I've always loved theater. It's the place that I go to experience those things. I think it's pretty normal. A lot of us are accustomed to stress regularly, and often the call is coming from inside the house, right? I've spent most of my life, I'm a stress case, I've spent most of my life just being stressed out and not realizing it. But I believe that the moment that we wake up to it is the moment when we can address it. Stress means something needs to change. And this is the part of the talk where I'm supposed to like bring it all together and be like, and if we all just embrace change, then we can be less stressed out. But I'm not going to do that. Instead, in the spirit of fostering presence and connection, I'm going to be honest with where I am today. This is what my living room looks like right now and has looked like since August. I'm not really like doing okay. I really and truly barely made it to this talk. And the Creative Mornings people have been like endlessly gracious and patient. But I'm not getting much done, and my capacity is really, really diminished. I'm really, really sad. And I miss rehearsal, and I miss people, and I miss plays really bad. The situation that we're currently in is just an onslaught of unending stress. And obviously there are ways to mitigate it, and there are radical social changes that we need to make. Please vote if you haven't already. But I firmly believe that the first step is one of the most important. Just be present with it. Recognize that you're experiencing something that isn't okay and that needs to change. Sometimes I think it's about just letting the stress break you and being kind to yourself and going to bed and hoping that tomorrow is better. And I'm going to close by inviting you just to be present with how stressful it is to be
You're live.
Hey,
You're back.
I was just putting a message up that we're having tech issues. Hello, we're back. Sorry about that. Lola, who is like 20 feet away from me right now, I'm looking at her. That was incredible. Thank you so much. Everyone out there in YouTube and Facebook and Twitter land, we're gonna open it up for Q&A now. So you can type your question into the chat or and it will pop up on my screen if tech is on our side, but you know Mercury's in retrograde, so here we are. And then I can read your question to Lola and we can put it on the screen and it should be great. So go ahead and get those questions ready. But I'll start. Lola, you mentioned about being kind and compassionate and generous and gentle to yourself. How are you embodying that right now in the space that we're in?
So I do all the like small things where it's like, I try to be nice to myself. I try to be nice to the people around me. I do an obscene amount of yoga. I do like 2 yoga classes a day. And I have the greatest friends on the face of the earth who I'm so grateful for. And I check in with them every single day and do Zoom calls like 2 or 3 nights a week. And that sort of keeps me sane.
So actually, I'm seeing that the sound cut out right when Lola, you were inviting us to do something. So do you wanna just do a redo of like the last little bit of your talk? Yeah. Okay, great.
If I stand here, is this a cool place to stand?
Yeah.
All right, cool. What I am inviting us all to do is to be kind, gracious, and compassionate with ourselves, and kind, gracious, and compassionate with each other, because we all need it, because we all deserve it, and because the thing we have learned this year is that we are so much more connected than we have ever dreamed, and that we are only going to get through this all together.
Thank you. Can you just hear me, right? So you don't need to see me. Should I jump back in?
No.
All right, cool. Okay. All right. So then the next question's from Stephanie Geller, who is watching on the YouTube. What's up, Stephanie? What is your next project and how can we get a box?
So we don't have any boxes for sale right now, but we lost a lot of money on the project and we have a lot of supplies. So if we got an influx of a bunch of people wanting to give us money to make more, we might be willing to make more. You can email us at contact@theacmecorporation.org. We don't really know what's next because our capacity is diminished and we are shutting down. But maybe we're going to do like an outdoor headphones thing for the spring. I don't really know.
I hear that this is the only mic that's working right now.
Oh man, this is a real pandemic stress style situation. Do you want me to hold that? Thank you.
Y'all, we're working through it. Thanks for working through it. We're still taking your questions though.
I think we're all doing great jobs.
We're all doing a great job.
Yeah.
So if you have more questions, put them in the chat and we can put them up on the screen. But while we're waiting for a couple more questions, I can ask a question. So I am on a mailing list called Lurdy's Night Baltimore that I joined like in the past 2 years. But I understand you actually created it.
Yeah.
Do you want to talk about that?
Sure. So in my 20s, the art community here was really dominated by men in a way that I did not find that cool. So I started doing these nights, these evenings for people who were not men. And we made this list to sort of just like organize the nights logistically. And then it ended up growing, and now there's like hundreds and hundreds of people on this list, and it's cool because it's become a real resource and sort of like its own kind of online community. And during pandemic, we like have really fun threads about like how to date, or like if Mariah Carey's mom, who is an opera singer, is mad at her about being a pop star or proud of her for being a pop star, which has been like fun during pandemic. We decided she's probably proud of her. Yeah.
No, I think it's been like a great way of like, we're all finding new and interesting ways of building community right now. And so I think in a lot of ways, that's the kind of the silver lining of all of this. Like the play that you made in a box, it's beautiful.
Thank you.
And I'm not sure it would have come to fruition if not given the circumstances in which we're in.
No, that's and that's the thing that's cool about it, right? And I don't want to be like, pandemic's not so bad, because it really is that bad. But I do think it is really cool to have the opportunity to have a new way of interacting and a new way of thinking. And I am this is one of my favorite projects that we've ever done. And there's no way I would have done anything like this if I had not had to.
Yeah, no. And I think that even so that has come out of it. I think even some of the thread about dating during COVID is very, very entertaining.
Yeah.
And great ideas are coming out of it. So I feel like there's just all these ways of community building that are a little bit atypical. Here's a question from Naomi, who's watching over on Facebook. She said, Lola, I have to know, how are you keeping your hair so luscious during pandemic?
Thank you for asking, Naomi, who is an Acme company member. I wash it very rarely, and that really contributes to a nice volume where I can just keep it up sort of effortlessly.
Great question.
It was a good question. Thank
you. So some other questions, I guess, are just oh no, they already asked my question. I'm sorry, y'all. There's a lot going on right now, as we said.
I think we're doing great.
Yeah, we're doing great.
This is a real everyone's doing great situation.
Yeah, but if you have more questions in the chat, keep them coming. But if not, we can wrap up the Q&A and we can just go continue to thank you for your talk.
Yeah.
Thank you for being so open and vulnerable and just willing to talk about stress in a very stressful time. I mean, even when I was typing the newsletter that went out, which I know only we have a 23% open rate, so not a ton of people saw it, but it's fine. But I was the playlists on stress and talking about stress, I was this all just feels so on the nose right now. So I feel your talk, so much appreciation and love for it, because I feel it's come at a time that is very relatable to so many of us. So just really, really appreciate it. Oh, here's a question that we have from Katie, though, on YouTube. Lola, do you remember your first experience with the adrenaline rush of creating a live performance?
Oh, good question. I don't know if I remember my first experience. I will say, as I've gotten older and more self-conscious, it's gotten stronger, really powerful. And I can't even doing this is I am nauseated for a day beforehand. So that's something I'm working on navigating, right?
Yeah.
But it is it's exciting, right? And directing is kind of the best version of it, because I'm just sitting there watching everyone else do the hard thing.
Totally. So Rebecca has asked to drop the fundraising link, and then Anita has already posted it. So I'm just putting these both on the screen for the Acme Corporation.
I love that. Thank you. Please give us money. We lost money on this project.
So there's you go to the acmecorporation.org. And so that is hopefully, I encourage you to just go support them, there's so many people in the pandemic, so many artists that definitely, theater is one of them. And one of the reasons why we talked to Lola to start with, just thinking it's hard. Theater's not really happening right now.
It's really not.
So we appreciate all the work and what you're doing. So yeah, please support local is really the message. Sorry. So I guess we're gonna wrap it up now. So I want to thank you, Lola. I want to thank Tracy and everyone at the Pratt. I want to thank Lauren and Anessa from HASA for sign language interpretation today. Everybody at behind the scenes here right now who is doing so much, thank you. And before we leave, actually, we're going to ask you for a selfie moment. So if you want to step up a little closer to the camera, we're going to invite you at home to go ahead and take a moment for your selfie with Lola. So
Yeah.
Wait, I see that Henley's taking one right now. So I just want to wait for that one. Yes, thank you so much. Thank you. And I want to put on the calendar next month. We're excited to have Jackie Milan come to the Creative Mornings Baltimore stage to discuss the theme of radical. And that will be on Friday, November 20th at 9 a.m. Also now, Arlene and Anita, if you could drop the link in the survey that I mentioned at the top of the event, we'd love for you to give us some feedback on how this went. We know we had some tech issues, so you could tell us about them, but we are aware of them. But anything else, we'd really love to hear about. And again, we'd love to see what this law looks like on your end. So tag us on social media at Baltimore_CM. And now we have just a quick closing exercise that we haven't done in a while, but maybe if you've come to our events before, you're familiar with. So I need you to open the chat window on whatever platform you're using, and that could be YouTube, Facebook, or Twitter. I'm going to ask a question, and I want you to type in your response, but don't send yet. Hit send yet. We'll press it all together at the same time. So type in your response, wait to hit send. Okay, here we go. How are you feeling right now? Type it in. Don't press send. Okay, let's do it on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Send. So we know that the magic of in-person events cannot be replaced by these digital events, but we hope that you feel connected to this community. We look forward to seeing you on November 20th, and hopefully again in the new year in real life sometime. Go vote, y'all. Have a great Baltimore morning.
Yeah.